read just a little bit from my introduction. And then, like I say, if Jim's up to it, because Jim is, not only is he one of our most pitch clock.
Yeah.
Not only is he one of our, greatest Chicago writers and has been for a very long time, but he's also an amazing performer. He comes from a background where he did a lot of performance, still does, although slowed down a little bit since the pandemic, right?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Exterior.
So I'll see if he'll do that, but I'm going to pass the book to him and see if he'll volunteer to do that. So this is 2007-8 when the Cubs they had this team that they assembled, which had a lot of good players, all-star players, and the talk around town was that this could be the team, right? And they wound up getting swept in both 2007 and 2008, so it was not the team. But we sort of thought maybe at the time. So this is the beginning of my introduction. I don't know how I hope for my life to change. Can't say to what heights of happiness I hope to ascend. Have no idea whether a void will be filled if the Chicago Cubs win a World Series. Or I should say, if the Chicago Cubs win a World Series in my lifetime. That's the ticking bomb. Because so long as Major League Baseball is a going concern, and the Chicago Cubs a thriving part of it, their mere participation, season after season after season, will make it happen. It just will. It has to, right? But me, I'm 43, so now I'm 57, so it's 14 years ago, right? I thought I was old then. I still have 32 years left if I do my first shake. I'm going to recalculate that. But taking into account all the cigars and fried food, years of drinking and gambling too much, a bent toward Roe Rage, and I might be approaching emergency mode. We might be approaching emergency mode. The Cubs and I are in this together. My Busha didn't make it. A second-generation Polish immigrant born in 1913, she used to keep one eye on Maplewood Street and the other eye on WGN. And she'd yell to us kids playing on the street, "The Bombs, they're losing!" Or, "That Phil Reagan, no good." Heart attack got her in 1985. Zsa Zsa didn't make it either. He never got to see a winner through the Great Depression, World War II, decades working in the steel mill, through another decade in an insane asylum. He used to raise his gray eyebrows, pinch a toothless grin that might have been teasing and might have been serious, and say, "This could be the year." He was saying that just before he died of old age in 2001. Jack Brickhouse went before it happened, born in 1916, when Brooklyn was the Robins and Boston was the Braves. Jack was the voice of the Chicago Cubs from 1940 until his retirement in 1981, all except 2 years, including 1945, when he served in the war as the Cubs won the National League pennant for the last time. When a brain tumor got Jack in 1998, at least 10 years too soon, I know he was screaming, "Hey, hey!" Mike Royko didn't last long enough either. The Cubs were the best team in the National League on the day he was born, September 9th, 1932. He remained a loyal Cub fan through a World Series loss in 1945 and a plunge to laughingstock status until Dave Kingman pushed him too far. Royko returned to the Cubs but never got to celebrate his homecoming. While Royko recovered from surgery for his first brain aneurysm, the Cubs opened their season with 14 straight losses. A few weeks later, on April 29, 1997, he had a second brain aneurysm and died. Steve Goodman, born on the North Side in 1948, saw it coming. The folk singer could only laugh at his beloved team during his short life. He wrote songs like "Go Cubs Go," "When the Cubs Go Marching In," and a dying Cub fan's last request, which was never granted. He died of complications from a lifelong battle with leukemia, just 11 days short of the team's first playoff appearance since long before he was born. His ashes are scattered around a warning track in Wrigley Field. John Belushi never had a chance. Born in the first month of 1949, whatever period of prosperity the Cubs had enjoyed was long over. The Cubs finished in last place the year of Belushi's birth, and never even had a winning season, and then by the slimmest of margins, until John was 14. The Cubs never finished higher than 5th until John was 18. The Cubs finished last or next to last in 17 of John's 32 years and didn't make the playoffs until 1984, 2 years after a speedball had already done it in. Albert Witt, my Aunt Judy's father, born in 1921 and retired the entire time I knew him, hung in as long as he could, which wasn't long enough. Albert required just 2 things for a happy retirement: mass quantities of old style and WGN. He used to sit in his recliner and say, "I'm dry, I'm so dry." This after his 10th old style. A few old styles into it, Albert would get joyful, then melancholy, waxing nostalgic about great Cubs players, great Cubs games, memorable seasons, and memorable plays. Properly sauced, he would turn curmudgeonly and fatalistic. His favorite phrase was, "Sons of lousy cocksuckers," which I'm sure he was still muttering when he died of a stroke in 2005. There aren't necessarily enough next years.
All right. An original piece by JB. Let's make it a little different here. This is about Yogi Berra, as he said. So, Yankees legend Yogi Berra passed away in 2015. But on opening day, we can't help but think of a greater catcher and manager. An 18-time All-Star, Berra appeared in 14 World Series as a member of the Yankees and won 10 of them. Berra's contributions to MLB history are incalculable, but his legends, okay, let's get some different light here. But his legacy might be even better remembered for what he contributed to American language. His sports writer's favorite, Berra had countless expressions and turns of phrase that were memorable because most of them didn't make any sense. At the same time, all of them had some truth. Berra-isms, colloquial expressions that logic, are now countless, and many of them are just attributed to Berra, even if he never actually said them. So it perfectly put it, I never said most of the things I said. Here are a few of his favorites. 1. When you come to a fork in the road, take it. 2. You can observe a lot by just watching. 3. It ain't over till it's over. 4. It's like deja vu all over again. 5. No one goes there nowadays, it's too crowded. 6, baseball is 90% mental and the other half is physical. 7, a nickel ain't worth a dime anymore. 8, always go to other people's funerals, otherwise they won't come to yours. 9, you made too many wrong mistakes. 10, congratulations, I knew the record would stand until it was broken. 11, you better cut the pizza in 4 pieces because I'm not hungry enough to eat 6. 12, you wouldn't have won if we'd beaten you. 13, it gets late early out here. 14, never answer an anonymous letter. 15, slump? I ain't in no slump, I just ain't hitting. 16, the future ain't what it used to be. And 17, if the people don't want to come out to the ballpark, nobody's going to stop them. Thanks to you.
Growing up in Chicago, I have to tell you my Cub memories. Sally, I have to agree with you. I am not a Cubs fan. I used to hope for rain delays so that the cartoons would be on WGN. But I had a next door neighbor, grew up next door to one another all the way through high school. His name was Gary Coons. And his father drove a CTA bus at night. And so he would get off his shift at 6 o'clock in the morning, sleep and wake up and tune in. They had a television, but he would tune in the radio on his back porch and play it loud as he could. So everybody within a half a block radius would hear the Cubs game for free. And Mr. Coons would sit there and he would drink his old styles and comment about the the experience that he was having. Well, Gary had a parakeet. And they kept the parakeet in the summer on the back porch. So this parakeet learned to say 2 things. Go Cubs and he popped up. Which is the 2 things that I remember about that. And now, this lovely parody of The Wasteland, T.S. Eliot's post-World War I apocalyptic poem about the destruction and dismantling of Western civilization in several languages and many voices, is now boiled down to this. The Waveland, a poem by Thomas Deja, with apologies to T.S. Eliot. 1. The burial of the dead. August is the cruelest month, bringing Cub fans into the dead land, mixing memory and desire, stirring dull right fielders with cold beer. Winter kept us warm, covering Wrigley in forgetful snow, feeding little hope with traded pitchers. Summer surprised us, coming over Addison Street with a cup of old style. We stopped at the Cubbie Bear and went on in sunlight into the bleachers and ate smoky links and talked for a few hours. I am no Sox fan from Logan Square, pure Cub. And when we were children, staying at the tool and die makers, my cousins, he took me up to the upper deck, and I was frightened. And he said, Tommy, hold on tight. And down the Cubs went. In the grandstands, there you sit for free. I read much of the season and go south in summer. Where are the runs that score? What pitches thrown by this human rubbish? Son of Wrigley, you cannot say or guess, for you know only a team of broken retreads playing where the sun beats and the dead ivy gives no shelter. Jim and Wright, no relief. The vendor, no sound of beer. Only there is baseball in this old park. Come, watch baseball in this old park and I will show you something different from either the dome at Houston rising above you or the fans at Philly looking to beat you. I will show you grass and a team that is busted. To the game, more or less. The bench we sat on, like a worn-out bar, peeled in the bleachers where the scoreboard held up standards wrought of gray steel and from which a pale scorekeeper peeped out. Another hid his paunch behind the clock, posed the score of 7 games, candlestick reflecting the time upon the coast, as the zeros next to Cub rose to meet defeat from Cardinal runs poured in rich profusion. There, Jack Brickhouse filled all the TV with inviolable voice, and still he cried, and still the outfielders pursued, "Hey, hey!" to dirty ears. And other withered stumps of time were set in their green seats, staring forms leaned out, leaning, jeering the team below. Footsteps shuffled on the base paths, over to Jesus, far to his left. Middle-wide throws spread out in fiery points, rolled into center field, then would be savagely booed. The Baron is bad today. Yes, bad. Stay with the pitch. Hit to left. Why can't Mercer hit to left? Hit! What's Willis waiting for? Why is he taking? Why? I'll never know why they always take. Swing! Joe thinks we need a late rally, but I just want to go home. What is the score? The Cubs are down by 4. What is the score now? What is the wind doing? Nothing. Again, nothing. Can't they hit anything? Can't they feel anything? Do you remember 69? I remember Cardinal's eyelids stuck to his eyes. Can you play or not? Is it something Lockman said? But oh, Clive's overslid the bag, tried for too many, a win for Denny. What shall we do now? What shall we do? We shall go out for a beer and have a beef with our heads down low. What shall we do tomorrow? What shall we ever do? The game starts at 1:30, and if it rains, a pass at the door. And we shall see a game, more or less, pressing lidless eyes and waiting for the Cubs to maybe score.
Yeah.
Do they still play the blues in Chicago? The season rolls around.
When the snow melts away, do the
Cubs still play in that powder-covered burial ground. I was a boy, they were my pride and joy.
But now they only bring fatigue. The home of the brave,
land of the free,
and the doormat
of the National League.
He told his friends, so anything can happen. So don't you be down in the dumps. But the last time the Cubs won a National League pennant was the year they elected. You know how that worked out. He said, you know, I'll never see Wrigley Field anymore before my eternal rest. So if you have your pencils and your scorecards ready, I'll read you my last request. Give me a double-headed funeral down in Wrigley Field on some sunny weekend day, no lights. And have the organ play the national anthem, and then a little na-na-na-na-na, hey, hey, goodbye. Make 6 bullpen pitchers carry my coffin, and 6 groundkeepers clear the path. And have the umpires bark me out at every base. You know, they're a holy wrath. Yeah, it's a beautiful day for a funeral. Hey Ernie, let's play too. Somebody go get Jack Brickhouse to come back and conduct just one last interview. Yeah, have the Cubbies run out right into the middle of the field and bring my ashes in and throw them up to the sky and let them just fry in the prevailing southwest winds. Yeah, let my last remains go flying over the bleachers, and I'll bid the bums adieu and come to my final resting place out on Waveland Avenue. Yeah, I got season tickets to watch the Angels now. That's just what I'm gonna do. And it's me who feels sorry for you. There's just one thing I'd like to know before I leave mine for the last time. Yeah, just one thing I'd like to know. Do they
Still sing the blues in Chicago when baseball season rolls around. When the snow melts away, do the Cubbies still play in their ivy-covered burial ground? When I was a boy, they were my pride and joy, but now they only bring the cheese. The home of the brave, the land of the free, and the doormat of the National League.
My name's James Finn Garner, by the way. And since I met Don, and all the years since I met Don, I've run a website with baseball doggerel. So like crummy baseball poetry for the day. So if you lose a fly ball, if you hit in the nads with a foul tip, I'm gonna write a poem about it and put it up. And today we ran our annual poem called Goodbye Cruel World, It's Opening Day by Seeley. The gods place bets with loaded dice, and all our earthly dreams betray. But listen to one clown's advice. Goodbye, cruel world, it's opening day. The politicians scrounge for power, with consequences we shall pay. But somewhere it's our finest hour. Goodbye, cruel world, it's opening day. Our weary age is full of war. The daily news brings dark dismay. So surf the dreams worth living for. Goodbye, cruel world, it's opening day. Thank you. That site is called bardball.com. So every day during the season we'll have poems, limericks, haiku from around the world for the current baseball season. It's been quite a neat thing to oversee, I guess, over all these years. The difference, I think, from when I met Don in 2007 or 8 and now is that the Cubs have lost their status of being very cool. They used to be epic, right? They used to be tragic figures across time. No one wanted it, but it's what it was, and so you have to kind of accept that. Mike Royko once said, I remember it very clearly in Esquire in the 80s, saying, man's life is pointed towards futility. That's why we have graveyards and Wrigley Field. And there's a call out in the article. So since then, it's like, you're just another team kind of scrambling for the other players. And that's fine, it's how it goes, but I kind of miss the days when it was just for the ages. It was, no one can lose, well, somebody could lose more than 100 years, but no one can lose with such style that the Cubs did for losing all those years. And the Lovable Losers, our reading series was called the Lovable Losers Review back at El Jardín. Can't call it that anymore. Now it's the Ricketts Sportsbook Reading Review. But I wrote a little thing for the show back then. You all know about the Greek legend of the Fates, right? The 3 Fates. Our lives are, the length of our lives are determined by 3 women who spin thread, measure it out, and snip it. And that's the length of our days. So I wrote a poem called, because the Cubs are so epic, this poem is called 3 Fates and You're Out. As 10 decades of failure concluded, the odds against which mighty steep, the 3 Fates sat in the Wrigley bleachers, one last great appointment to keep. There Clotho, with distant expression, spun thread from her distaff with ease. The flaxen content of life in her hands, her scorecard spread over her knees. Her sister Lachesis sat by her to measure each thread to its length. Her face a smear of SPF 50, as the sun beat down in its strength. Lastly, Atropos, peddler of doom, whose shears sever man's vital thread, was letting the line pile up at her feet, and placidly staring ahead. What could cause the Fates' dereliction, prolonging the Cubs' misery? What forces conspire to cruelly delay the end of this sad century? Beside the gals sat diehard Bacchus, with grapes twined in his cup visor. You can't leave now. We can still score some runs. Hey, beer man, 4 more Budweisers.
Like Sally, I'm not really that big of a baseball fan, but I thought I could pull something out for this. I grew up with a father who loved watching sports on TV. A Dodgers fan from the Brooklyn days, his favorite was baseball. But he'd watch tennis, golf, badminton, billiards, bowling, anything that involved competition. So I know what I'm talking about when I tell you that no sport on the planet is more challenging to watch than Little League. When my son was young, 7 and 8 and 9, it was hard to watch him strike out or let a ball slip past in the outfield, or once take a pitch right on the nose and fall to the ground, hands pressed to his face. Don't you want to go out there? Another mom asked me, her face stricken when I rolled my eyes. She didn't know my kid. He loves a good injury and milks even a scrape for sympathy or ice cream. And since he was writhing on the ground without looking for his parents, I doubted this was serious. Sure enough, he soon struggled to his knees, then to his feet, shaking his head and basking in the applause as he slow jogged to first base and took a bow. But none of this compared to the later years. Last season, when Andrew was 14, I attended every game, sitting on the sidelines with our elderly dog, the pair of us bored out of our minds. Strike, ball, strike, foul, foul, ball, wild pitch so he walks, then steals, then the next batter fouls onto the basketball court while parents scream, heads up. Sometimes my son's team was so much stronger than their opponent that I rooted against them. Sometimes it was the reverse, and sometimes they were so perfectly matched that each inning dragged out with hardly any score, and I text my friends in all caps, "I'm dying here." My partner Kevin often helped the team by calling the batting lineup and coaching runners at first or third. That's where he was, standing just off third base when the most exciting event of our 7 years in Little League took place. I had taken an edible on the way over and was zoning out in my camp chair, appreciating the soft evening and how bright the sky remains after sunset. Every time someone got a hit, I clapped raucously before figuring out which team it was. Maybe 20 feet past the third baseline, a group of Southeast Asian men were playing sepak takraw, a kind of kick volleyball game. Now that was exciting. The rattan ball in constant motion, players using every part of their bodies except hands to launch it over the net. I was too far away to see this particular game, but I could hear the voices raising and lowering, and then raising in a way that suggested real anger. Still, I didn't know a fight had broken out until a group of guys formed, one of whom appeared to be repeatedly kicking a player on the ground. Everyone on the field and sidelines paused to watch until some white guy marched over, grabbed the kicker, carried him a few feet, and tossed him on the ground. Then the white guy yelled, seemingly at the whole group, and stormed back to coaching third base. Even then, I didn't realize it was Kevin until another parent commented on his bravery. A few minutes later, another fight threatened, and Kevin headed back over, spoke to the men, and returned to third base, clapping for the runner to get ready. Suddenly, I couldn't sit still and walked the dog around as one of the sepak takraw players jogged toward the parking lot. I imagined him fetching a gun from his car, imagined the next day's headline, but no, he returned shortly with a sweatshirt, and there was no more violence that night. What there was instead was appreciation. After the game ended and both teams had lined up on the field for a genteel COVID-era hat tip to their opponents, parents from both teams clapped Kevin on the back. One mother, there as always with her wife, fanned her face and said, "My stars, you are strong." One of the dads from our team approached with great emotion in his eyes. "Thank you for showing the rest of us how to act," he said, grasping Kevin's hand and not letting go. "We were all just standing around watching someone get pummeled, but you did something about it. Now I know what to do next time." That dad was tall, skinny, and did not look like someone who could take a punch, so I didn't think he should ever try what Kevin had done. I imagine he was just impressed by a man in his mid-50s, bald and wearing a long-sleeved t-shirt that did not show off muscles. Kevin is one of the kindest, fairest, least pugnacious men I've ever known, but he's also way stronger than he looks, and he grew up fighting. Andrew hadn't seen what happened, and when I told him, he cracked up. "That's Dad," he said. And me? I was no longer bored. I couldn't wait to go home with my hero, my man, who 23 years into our relationship could still, on occasion, make me lose my breath. Little League had worked for all of us that day.
Yeah, this is a book about baseball and gambling on baseball. But I want to call another pinch hitter, Dave Cihla. Am I going to ruin your video?
No,
Come
can I
up
capture
here
all
and
this?
pinch hit for me because Dave Seeley was also in the Cubbie Blues, 100 Years of Waiting Till Next Year. It was just a little bit, the fabulous thing about that book and the reading series that preceded it, I didn't know Jim before then, I didn't know Dave before then, we had a mutual friend but had never met. And a lot of us who met during that time are still friends 15 years later. So Dave, come and tell us about the Schwartz.
Sure. Thanks, everybody. I was kind of a last
Oh, look at
second
him, fucking brought it.
edition. Well, I wasn't expecting to come on stage here, but I've been recording this, and I hope to make an episode out of this evening.
Do you want someone to hold the camera?
All right, this
Well,
the bidding starts at $20.
We're talking about right field, the Lovable Losers, and it was a year and a half ago or so. I was like, that was such an amazing period in our lives. It was so much fun at El Jardín. You guys have mentioned. I'm sorry, I got here a little late. about a year and a half ago, I was like, that was such an amazing period. All these eclectic artists getting together, writing poetry, playing music. And I came up with a show that I started last year called Right Field Sucks. And I produce about one or two about 8 or 10 a year now. And so they run on Can TV, Channel 19. Don was one of my guests. And basically I pulled from that whole entity, all the Lovable Losers. We had Brian Bernardoni, who James Van Garner, I think he's written something for your site. Randy Richardson, Ronnie Woo Woo, Jerry Burdikin, Bleacher Preacher, Sid Yiddish, that was phenomenal. Yeah, so it's been amazing to reconnect with all these characters. And when I got this invitation from Don, I was like, oh, this would be a lot of fun. So I was at opening day yesterday, and some of you may remember the Shawnometer. So back in '89, we started the Shawnometer. And the original's in the Smithsonian. There's one in the Baseball Hall of Fame that's on display. There's one in the Chicago History Museum. So we did that for 10 years or so. And then in 2015, like, Schwarber kind of sounds like Sean. So it started the Schwarber-meter. And that tracked his slugging percentage, and we got to the World Series and everything. And then we did the Schwindo-meter, which we tracked his OPS. That was a very short-lived thing there. And so this year I'm like, man, what can we do? Maybe the Nico-meter. And then they got Swanson. I'm like, Swano-meter. It's perfect. We go back to our roots with a shortstop tracking his batting average. We were there yesterday, and so here's the Swano-meter of Robust 750. So, so if you guys want to come out, and I'll leave this here if anyone wants to take a picture with it or whatever. But anyways, thanks Don for getting this all back together. It's a lot of fun. I appreciate it, and it's been a great evening so far. So thank you.
So Don, did you? So you don't want to be? You don't want to be?
I'll read a little bit of it. And here's that pamphlet that I referred to earlier. Amid the swirl of activities and phone calls and panic and indecision that happened a few times each day, Chance did these figures in his head with amazing ballpark accuracy and made snap decisions with the steel-like calmness of a virtuoso. Theoretically, this all worked to Chance's advantage, but it still came down to winners and losers, and there were too many losers too often, which frankly was how the game went. It got to be a job. If he wasn't around to call an event, he was sure to get up. Where were you yesterday? I had 4 winners call. Periodically, somebody came up short, which meant he had to cover the difference himself. I like the Royals, Abe said. The White Sox are dog shit. One gambler's evidence for was another gambler's evidence against. Chance tried to stay aloof of who you like discussions, but when pressed would lie to all but Abe. Chance and Abe met in high school. They played football together, did the whole boxing thing, co-starred in a school play, sang in the choir, even co-edited the yearbook. They also started gambling then. They were perfect companions and perfect enablers, so that whatever crazy interest one wanted to pursue, the other nodded in approval. They'd been through years of gambling highs and lows together, and some of it was so devastating, so euphoric, so emotionally draining, that Chance might not believe his own history, where Abe not witnessed. Abe was as close as Chance would ever get to an old war buddy. What do you think of the Cubs-Pirates game, Chance? Big game, huge game. Abe played along. Why is that such a big game? They're all big. It was true enough. One could make a pickup tetherball game into the gold medal round of the Olympics by plopping down enough cash. Chance and the others could drum up the drama of a Super Bowl or a 7th World Series game just by going big. Lately, nothing but Super Bowl and 7th game losers. Chance's running total with his bookies reflected Abe's shitty week, Tool's shitty week, Max's shitty week, and especially his own shitty week. Chance spotted Mary, Pat, and Kia, who were roommates, walking up Broadway. They were with a guy he'd never seen. Chance flipped shut his notepad and shoved it in his front pocket. He wore a chambray shirt with simple tie and aviator sunglasses. He carefully placed his doc schedule in his trousers pocket. Mary, Pat, and Kia are here. Tool and Ava and Max turned their heads towards the door. It's 11:15 now. I'm going to call for odds and make my bets in about 20 minutes. Figure it out now if you want anything. There's an unspoken law that gamblers never discuss gambling around civilians. For one, these are people who had and would loan them money. For another, it would be impossible to coordinate all the bullshit stories they told to all their friends. The civilians, for their part, all seemed somehow to know all the sketchy details and also knew not to ask. Kia slid in next to Chance and rested her head on his shoulder. I'm so hungover. Chance had had a thing with Kia for a while, but who hadn't? Mary Pat gestured toward the strange man. Chance, this is Philip. Tool, Philip. A. Tool? That's right, Richard works too.
Hayward has it. Time for the seventh inning stretch. Special one today, brought to you by Budweiser. For today's stretch, please welcome WGN Sports Executive Producer Bob Forwall.
On behalf of everybody at WGN TV, we want to thank the greatest fans in the world. This goes out for Jack Brickhouse, Vince Lloyd, Lou Boudreau, Arnie Harris, Jeff Rosenberg, and the thousands of men and women who brought you 72 seasons of Cubs baseball on WGN. So please check out the video board and join our family. Let's all do this together one more time. All right, Harry, let it rip. Well, let me hear you. Good and loud. All right, Gary. All one. 1, 2, 3. Take me out to the home game. Take me out to the crowd. Buy me something that's a cracker jack. I don't care if I ever get back, 'cause it's good for the hobbies. If they know it, it's a shame. For it's 1, 2, 3 times you're out at the old ball game. Let's get some runs. Baseball season is underway. They're getting ready for a brand new day. Hey, Chicago, what do you say? Cubs are going on in today. Go Cubs, go. Go Cubs, go. Hey, Chicago, what do you say? The Cubs are gonna win today. Go Cubs, go. Go Cubs, go. Hey, Chicago, what do you say? The Cubs are gonna win today. We got the power, they got the speed. The best in the National League. Go Cubs, go. Every season, and Cubs and we'll go Cubs, go. So come on, back up and with me, go. That's right. Go Cubs, go. Go Cubs, go. Hey, Chicago, what do you say? Cubs are gonna win today. Go Cubs, go. Go Cubs, go.
go, Cubs go. Catch it all up, yeah, just like really. Go Cubs go, go Cubs go. Hey Chicago, what do you say? Cubs on over today. Cubs and Cubs go, Cubs and Cubs go today. Okay, that's it.